Thanks for joining me for a special episode of the Ricochet Moment. Today, we're taking a bit of a detour from the usual path. Normally I focus on brands, those big defining shifts, those ricochet moments that completely change the trajectory. But today, we're looking at something that's still unfolding, a moment that's far from over. Hey, it's Nick. I've been completely captivated by the moments and decisions that aren't fully written yet. The deals are done, the choices have been made, but the real outcome, it's still unfolding. These moments happen every day, all around us. Which ones will we look back on and recognize as ricochet moments? Not just for the brand, but for society itself. I'll be honest, I wasn't the kid with a stack of comic books. I collected sports cards, and later, a pile of music flyers that was probably nerdier than anything Marvel ever put out. But here's what fascinates me. We're all watching these massive shifts in beloved brands, yet we barely react. The things that felt permanent, woven into our cultural fabric, are suddenly changing hands, and somehow, we're getting used to it. Today, I'm talking about Marvel and James Bond, two brands I couldn't avoid as a kid, even if I tried. They were everywhere, and now they're both at a crossroads. Take the James Bond franchise. Amazon just snatched the keys, and we don't know how it's going to play out, yet. But we can see the writing on the wall. And if you look at what happened to Marvel under Disney's control, it's really not that hard to draw parallels. So today, I'm going to take you on a quick journey, comparing Amazon's acquisition of Bond to Marvel's under Disney, and why, for better or worse, these moments are reshaping brands in ways we may not fully understand yet. Let's connect the dots. Marvel, for those unfamiliar, started as a humble comic book publisher in the 1930s and 40s. It wasn't until later that characters like Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the X-Men rose to fame, becoming cultural icons in their own right. These were characters built on flaws in humanity, individuals who, despite their superpowers, were deeply relatable. Over the decades, Marvel grew into a global entertainment empire, particularly with the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a series of interconnected films that has dominated box offices. But as Marvel transitioned into its current form, it traded its roots of creative risk for financial consistency, and with it, some of what made the brand so unique began to fade. Now, with Amazon's recent acquisition of the James Bond franchise, we face a very similar crossroads. What made Bond iconic, the grit, the complexity, the defiance, could be at risk in favor of streamlined profitability. Will the franchise evolve like Marvel, sacrificing its soul for the sake of a bigger, more predictable audience? Let's take a closer look. When Disney acquired Marvel in 2009, it was hailed as a move that would change the landscape of entertainment forever. And it did. Just not in the way that many people envisioned. The Marvel Cinematic Universe turned into a globally dominant force, churning out films that grossed billions. But there's a darker side to this success. What we see in Marvel now isn't the scrappy, rebellious brand that challenged the norms of mainstream culture. It's a machine, a finely tuned, algorithm-driven system that produces perfectly polished, yet ultimately predictable content. Characters that once defied expectations now exist in service of an overarching narrative, designed for maximum appeal. Every decision is driven by data, what works, what sells, what drives engagement. Is it our attention spans? Is it that we just want to zone out? Or are we being conditioned to expect more, faster, louder? Don't get me wrong, I'm passionate about the idea of brands. I love diving into them, building them, watching them evolve. But here's the thing, I can't shake the feeling that something's shifting. The process of creating the next big thing is starting to feel like an assembly line. The ones holding the keys, they're not the scrappy visionaries we once admired. They're massive conglomerates gobbling up the moments, the brands, the stories that shaped us. what happens when these giants take control? The magic may still be there, but the soul? It's a different story. The spirit of risk, the spirit of novelty, they've been smoothed out in favor of consistency. And sure, the numbers are there. The MCU is the highest grossing film franchise in all of history. But if we're honest, we've traded cultural relevance for financial profitability. We've sacrificed the brand's soul to fuel the machine. Enter James Bond. Amazon's recent acquisition of MGM and the creative control over the Bond franchise may seem like a natural progression in the streaming wars, but it signals something much more profound. We are witnessing the beginning of what could be a very similar fate for Bond as we saw with Marvel. The Broccoli family didn't just create a brand, they shaped a legacy. For over 60 years, Albert "Cubby" Broccoli and his family held the reins of James Bond, transforming a relatively unknown spy into one of the most enduring cultural icons of all time. Bond wasn't just a franchise to them, it was personal. Every film, every actor, every scene reinforced the essence of what Bond stood for: class, intrigue, danger. Cubby, and later his children Michael and Barbara, committed to preserving Bond's soul while adapting him for each new generation. This careful balance, it's been their hallmark, until now. Enter Amazon. With its immense distribution power and data-driven content strategies, Amazon is set to reshape the future of 007, leveraging its vast reach and resources to redefine what Bond will mean for the next era. But here's the question. Here's what's still playing out. Can Amazon's influence preserve the essence of Bond, or will it, like Marvel, fall victim to the pressures of mass market appeal? When Disney acquired Marvel, it was a bet on scale. Bigger budgets, more movies, more crossovers, more merchandise. It worked. But something shifted. The characters we once knew and loved became less human. They weren't the rebellious, nuanced individuals who challenged the status quo anymore. They became polished, commercialized avatars. And somewhere along the way, we stopped noticing. Fans grumbled at first, questioning the changes. But slowly, those complaints were drowned out by the noise of the machine. What we once cherished became part of the assembly line. It was still Marvel, but it wasn't Marvel anymore. Now, as Amazon steps into the driver's seat with Bond, we can't help but wonder if the same thing will happen. The platform-driven model of Amazon. It's primed for a Bond that serves both the streaming platform and the global audience in a way that's efficient, high-tech, and immediate. It's not hard to imagine the future. Bond films, less focused on the traditional cinematic experience, more optimized for rapid consumption on streaming. Perhaps shorter films, faster production cycles, or even multi-platform content. Exclusive series, digital-first experiences. Maybe even a virtual interaction with Bond himself. Bond will become part of the same entertainment ecosystem that powers everything from Alexa to Prime Day sales. And while that's great for Amazon's bottom line, it's not exactly great for the brand's soul. In Amazon's hands, the James Bond franchise might lose its irreverence, the risk-taking, boundary-pushing storytelling that made Bond stand out can be replaced by a more polished, formulaic approach. The nuances, the contradictions, the moral complexity of the character can give way to something more easily digestible for a global audience. Look at Marvel. What made the early comics and films so unique was their willingness to take risks, both in storylines and in character development. That's what set them apart from the likes of DC and other superhero brands. Now, Marvel's storytelling is structured, predictable even. It's not about character depth or exploring societal themes. It's about fitting into a blueprint that ensures both box office returns and global appeal. In other words, It's a brand optimized for the algorithm, not for the artistry that made it great in the first place. That's the future Bond faces if Amazon follows this path. When we look at the future of James Bond under Amazon's ownership, it's hard not to see the parallels to Marvel's transition into the Disney fold. Yes, we're going to get more Bond. Yes, we're going to see bigger budgets, flashier tech, and maybe even more frequent releases. But what about the soul of the brand? What about the complexities of Bond, the contradictions, the tension between the character's duty and his personal demons? Bond's future may very well mirror Marvel's, more profitable, more polished, but at the expense of what made it truly iconic. The question remains, can Amazon deliver a Bond that stays true to the character's roots while expanding to a new era? Or will we simply be watching another brand consumed by the corporate gears of the entertainment machine? At the end of the day, the true test of Bond's legacy won't be in the size of its box office or the number of Prime subscribers it attracts. It will be in the stories it tells and whether it continues to resonate with audiences who have loved it for decades, not just for its profits, but for its soul. In the world of content and acquisitions, legacy is often sacrificed at the altar of scale. But when the legacy fades, what's left? Is it just another franchise? Profitable, yes, but totally forgettable in the long run. The next chapter of Bond may well be the most profitable yet, but let's hope it's not the one that kills what made the brand great. If you're still with me, thanks for indulging in this deep dive. The way today's decisions, deals, and directions echo the past fascinates me. When pivotal moments happen, those moments that send ripples into the future, did anyone notice? Did they speak up? Or did it just all unfold quietly without fanfare? We'll never really know, but what we can do now is pay attention, track the shifts, as long as we don't let our attention slip away. I hope you'll join me again. Let's capture that ricochet moment.